And hello, my name is Darren. I'm a dad. I'm an airline pilot. I'm a husband of a scientist. And of course, this is not a green screen today. I'm at Sun and Fun. And many people associate Sun and Fun with, of course, the air show and stuff in the air. But there is so much more to the show that is on the ground. And you can come here and never look up and have a great, you won't, but have a great experience. Things like flight schools, cadet programs, flight sim stuff. So I'm going to show you the stuff, some stuff in the air, but mostly on the ground of what you can do at Sun and Fun that is not necessarily what you think of an air show like, because there's so much more here than just looking up in the air and looking at awesome airplanes. So come along, let me show you Sun and Fun and the stuff and resources they have available to you. So yes, I went to Sun and Fun this year for information gathering for you guys. I wanted to talk to the cadet program personnel in person, ask lots of questions, look at all the flight schools that are out there, seeing what they're offering. Of course, look at airplanes and the actual sky, planes in the sky, and see some of the activities they have on property for kids, the latest flight sim tech. There's so much at Sun and Fun. But again, my primary focus there was to talk to all the cadet programs. And a couple years ago, if you asked about a cadet program, I'd tell you, if you want to, join a cadet program. Back then, times were different. Regional airlines were hiring quickly. Once you got to 1,500 hours, they were picking you up and offering you tens of thousands, if not $100,000. Regional airlines were paying for your airfare to go to an ATP CTP course, paying for the ATP CTP course itself, and getting you in class as soon as possible. Things have changed a lot over the last year. So I wanted to see what the current landscape looks like for cadet programs and their regional hiring. Now, as far as cadet programs, what is a cadet program? It's really hard to define. It could be something as simple as you are a person wanting to be an airline pilot for Delta Airlines, and they have a pathway for you to go from zero all the way to being a pilot for Delta Airlines. Or it could be something as simple as you already have your pilot license because maybe you flew a couple years ago, and you think about maybe you want to be an airline pilot nowadays. There's a pathway program for you. Or you're a CFI already, and maybe you are looking to go cargo or looking to go corporate, or maybe you just want to be a CFI, and now you're like, hey, I want to be an airline pilot. There's a pathway for you as well. So defining a cadet program is really hard, and my intent initially, I had all these notes, was to compare the SkyWest cadet program versus Republic, versus American Airlines cadet program, versus Southwest 225, versus the JetBlue program, versus Frontier. It got to be too difficult. It was so much words on the screen, it didn't make much sense to do that kind of thing. So instead, I'm going to talk about the cadet programs overall. Now, is it a good idea? It's a good idea if you see value in it. Again, I give the example of we can all go to Walmart and buy a cheap phone that can take pictures, make phone calls, and send text messages. Or you can buy an iPhone or a Pixel phone or a Samsung phone that does it a little bit better. Talking to these cadet programs and talking to these regional airlines specifically, if you are a part of a cadet program, you're almost on like an expressway to get to the regional airline. Right now, 80 to 90% of the people that are being hired by regional airlines are coming from these cadet programs. It's changed quite a bit. With some of these cadet programs, you apply to them, you're paying the money, but you still have to apply, and you might do one interview, and that's the last interview you'll do for the rest of your airline career. Others simply have a preferential hiring agreement with certain regional or mainline carriers. And others say, hey, you join us and you can pick from a multitude of different airlines. For example, like SkyWest Airlines, they are a regional airline and they fly on behalf of American, Delta, and United. So with their cadet program, you can kind of pick your own way of getting to where you want to be. Versus someone like PSA, Piedmont, or Envoy, those three regional airlines are under the same umbrella as they are part of the American Airlines group, so they're part of American Airlines. So if you go to PSA, Envoy, or Piedmont, you're really being steered toward going to one of those airlines and then one day going on to American Airlines. Then there's the Endeavor program, Endeavor is a wholly owned subsidiary of Delta Airlines. You go to Endeavor, well, you're on the track to go to Delta Airlines. Not to mention, Delta Airlines has their own cadet academy, as does American Airlines has their own cadet academy, which the Delta Airlines Cadet Academies programs and American Airlines Cadet Academy programs are different than their wholly owned regional subsidiaries. It is a very confusing landscape, and you really have to make a plan, and it all depends on where you are in your career. If you have never touched an airplane, but you want to be an airline pilot, then many of them are designed to take you from person on the street all the way to airline pilot or to commercial pilot, and then you get your hours on from there. Other ones do have opportunities if you already have a private. Some are required to have a private, and then other ones, again, if you have a CFI, you can join as well. Asking around, there are some people that are in no man's land where, and I feel bad for you, by the way, if you were a CFI last year and you got to $1,500 right when the doors were closing, now you're in a weird spot because many of them won't take you into a CFI cadet program because you already have $1,500 and you don't qualify for the other ones as well. So you're in this weird area where you have to really start hustling and striving to get to the regionals. So again, 80 to 90% of the hiring right now is coming from their own cadet programs. Again, speaking of the hiring, I asked the regional airlines. So let's say I have $1,500 right now in my ATP, CTP, which they aren't paying for. Some of them are still paying for, most are not. In order to get on with the regional right now, it takes, and you're off the street, not a part of the cadet program, you apply when you get close to $1,500. They'll look at your application, get you an interview in 3 to 4 months, and some of them won't get you into a class for over a year. That's based on what's going on right now. I think it'll start accelerating here as the aircraft deliveries start picking up again at the main line, which makes more regionals go up the main line and that kind of thing. But it's a much more drawn out process than it used to be. Now, someone's going to ask me, well, Darren, what's your personal opinion on the best cadet program? And Darren, I don't have an answer to that. Because again, when I learned to fly back in 2006, there were no such thing as a cadet program. And I don't ever recommend any certain airline or cadet program or flight school because I am too far out of the loop. I haven't been in a flight training arena for like 18 years. So I don't give you a recommendation per se, but here's what I'll tell you to help you find a cadet program or a flight school. So with the current environment and this whole cadet program thing is going on right now, you kind of have to plan your life first and then work backwards. This is my personal opinion as a dad. I'm gonna call you a life guy. Figure out where in the world or in the country that you want to live. Say you want to live, you want to live in Denver, New York, Miami, wherever that is, right? Then figure out what major airlines have hubs there, have a pilot base there. You can go to airlinepilotcentral.com to get more information on where the current pilot hubs are. Airline Pilot Central, airline profiles, click on major, click on an airline, scroll down for domiciles, and that's what the airport codes are to figure out where pilot bases are. Then you can figure out which regionals have bases there. Many regionals have the same bases as the mainline counterparts. Then go back and see which cadet programs the regionals are affiliated with. Then come back and figure out what flight schools, because many of the cadet programs have multiple partner schools that you can attend. Go down and keep filtering down, and that way you can make a plan of a few flight schools you want to maybe go visit to then start your journey on to being an airline pilot. It is a very tedious task. It is not something as simple as click, go, and I'm a pilot. There's a lot to it. And on that note, flight schools. So at Sun and Fun, there are multiple flight schools there. That is a huge perk of this event. There are multiple flight schools there, and many of them had their own airplanes on site. You can walk around, see what kind of equipment they're flying, talk to the current flight instructors, and see what they have to offer. Now, one thing I didn't care for was many of the flight schools, not all of them, but many of them had these banners up saying 0 to commercial pilot in 9 months, 0 to commercial pilot in 7 months, 6 months. And I get why they're doing it, but it's kind of I think it's kind of a negative thing in my opinion. When you are learning to fly, you are learning a new skill. And in my personal opinion, most of the time to get to an airline is spent time building, not with the foundations and getting your basic ratings in. You need to have a good foundation to build upon, and we don't all learn the same. Some of us are very fast learners. People like me are not fast learners. So I wouldn't pick a flight school based on whatever number they have for zero to commercial pilot. That is not even a factor in my personal opinion. You need to find a flight school where you will have a good learning environment and where you can succeed. I see so many posts and I get so many messages from people, and it's unfortunate that picked a flight school based on a website, they clicked, they applied for a loan, they got approved for a loan, they flew down to the flight school for the first time ever, never been to it before ever, and they had a horrible experience. Maybe that location was not set up for them as far as their learning habits. Maybe that even the city and the area weren't set up for them. Because again, we're people, right? We're all human beings, and we're social people by nature. So if you have all your family up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and you're going out for the first time ever, and you're going down to Daytona Beach, Florida, having no family down there, no support structure, you might have a bad time. You might be a very smart person, but maybe that learning environment isn't the best for you. So pick a flight school. You need to have boots on the ground at the actual physical location where you're going to attend and spend money. It might cost you $1,500 for airline tickets, some nights in a La Quinta, and a rental car, and to drive around the area and visit all these flight schools. That is pennies upon a multi-million-dollar career. Again, so many people waste tens of thousands of dollars by going to a flight school they were not prepared for, and then they either are asked to leave or wash out or leave on their own. And then many of them are the people that will give that flight school a bad name. They'll say, oh, that flight school X, they don't care about you. They're a pilot mill. They just push you through. Well, maybe you should have done some more research on it, right? Maybe you should have looked at multiple flight schools to figure out which one worked best for you. Again, when I went to school, doesn't really matter, but I went to a much more slower paced school. I did everything over a year to go from 0 to CFI, which is still pretty quick. But when you're looking for a flight school, you need to interview them like you're going to marry them. You might have asked the uncomfortable questions. When you're at Sun and Fun and you're talking to CFIs and you ask them, why did you pick this flight school? Would you come here again? What's your first time pass rate? What's your obligations to the flight school if you're on this cadet program? How long do you have to teach? How long do you have to be a pilot at the regional before you go on the main line? These are all, especially in this environment, these are all the questions you need to ask in order to make sure that you're picking the best option for you, and so you can do the best you can and succeed and get to where you want to be. Now, of course, I didn't just go there just to go talk to the flight academies and the cadet programs. I want to see airplanes, and there are so many airplanes at Sun and Fun. Thousands of airplanes at Sun and Fun. And if you're an airplane geek, you have a kid that loves airplanes, you can spend all day long walking around and seeing so many different kinds of aircraft that you have never even seen before. Like I saw these gyrocopters. They're pretty interesting, and they all flew here under their own power. They weren't like trucked in here. Some of the pilots flew these down from like the New York area all down the eastern seaboard down to Florida. You can go around and see unique looking airplanes, and it's kind of neat to be able to walk around, see an airplane, and see and talk to the pilot that flew it in. And again, you can say, look, little Johnny, this is Sarah. Sarah flew this plane in here. This is her airplane. And maybe she'll even sit in the airplane and she'll talk to you about her airplane. One-on-one with the pilot, that makes core memories for a kid. It's a totally fun day to walk around and look at airplanes on the ground. Not much less the ones that are in the air doing aerobatics and all kinds of shows up in the air. Seeing fighter jets, seeing people jump out of airplanes, the whole parachute thing, seeing skyriders. It is a full day of aviation fun. I walk 6 to 7 miles per day. If you're a parent of a little one, I highly recommend bringing a wagon because their feet will get tired very quickly. Additionally, there's the newest technology as far as the flight decks. People in general aviation have these fancy Garmin flight decks you can use. Mainline, planes, they're kind of in a time capsule. Whenever my 777 was designed in the late 80s, early 90s, that is all the tech we have. It's from the 80s and 90s. Even brand new 777s rolling off the assembly line today, they have the same displays and underlying tech from the 80s and 90s. My Airbus that I love so much, designed in the 70s and 80s. So they have, it's fancy LCD screens, but the technology is nowhere near as advanced as the current general aviation technology is, and it's pretty neat. And there's also flight sim technology. They had lots of flight sim companies there showing new joysticks, displays, and add-ons you can get for your flight sim. Again, all this is on the ground, not much forgetting about what's up in the air as far as the airplanes flying around. And of course, there's activities for kids. They have an entire room full of activities for kids, hands-on, touching stuff, playing with things, all related to aeronautics. It's pretty interesting. And of course, you can, as a parent, you can go in and kind of cool down for a bit too, because Florida is hot. Bring your sunscreen, bring your bottle of water, because you will get a tan much darker than me if you don't have sunscreen on. And also, I happened to walk around and see this drone competition going on. It looked like they're playing a soccer game, but there's high school kids flying around drones, and it was pretty neat. I didn't know this was a thing as far as like having a drone competition. But again, it's another part of Science and Fun which you don't even think about. Most people think of it as an air show, but it's aeronautics show. It's so much stuff going on around the campus of the Lakeland Airport. And speaking of the campus, again, I'm a pilot for a major airline, and my union has a family awareness unit, and the volunteers there, every year I've been to Sun and Fun, they have a chalet. It's a fancy word for a big air-conditioned indoor space under a big tent that they have set up every year that if you work for my airline, you can go in and cool down. They have soft drinks and other beverages there. And then they had lunch and dinner a couple days of the week. And they had a outdoor viewing area in front of the chalet that you can watch the air show. So if you work for my airline, if you're a pilot for my airline anyway, if you're a pilot for my airline, you and your family can go and enjoy the chalet, free lunch with your union dues, and have some nice upfront seating to the air show as well. And unless I forget, you guys. You guys are the reason I make these videos and why I went to Sun and Fun. I met so many of you at this event, and it was, again, I'm a genuine guy. If you meet me in person, this is who you meet. I am not some macho guy. I'm just a dad. I'm a geek. And it was so cool to walk around. And I posted on Instagram, this is what I'm wearing today. If you see me, say hi to me. And so many of you either sought me out, or even funnier and cooler for me anyway, was just walking around and somebody just go, hey, you. And it's tracked me down, and we talked for a bit, right? And I'll talk your ear off. And it was very rewarding and fun talking to all of you. I even talked to some of your spouses about aviation, what your plan is, and why you're here. And it was a very fun day, and I appreciate all of you saying hi to me. I appreciate all of your support, and I truly mean that. All the money I make on YouTube, I am not some big YouTuber. I make a couple $100 a month doing this, and I take that money and I spend it to make better videos. So for me to get to Lakeland, Florida, Sun and Fun awarded me, let me apply for a media pass. I had media credentials to get into the show for free, but then I had to get my own way there, right? So I work for an airline, but my airline got me to Tampa at like 10:30, 10:45 in the morning, and I need to be there by noon. So I used my jump seat privileges to fly on the other Dallas airlines, Southwest Airlines. Went over to the left field, asked the captain for a ride, and he was very gracious and let me ride in the back of the airplane. I had a whole run myself on a 737 MAX. Flew into Tampa, rented a rental car, thanks to my YouTube money, drove to the show, and then to save even more money, because I'm very frugal, I stayed in Orlando versus staying in Lakeland, because Lakeland hotels were like $400 a night versus Orlando hotels were like $100 a night. So I stayed in Orlando. That's a tip for you guys. If you need to go to Sun and Fun, just stay in Orlando and then make the hour drive. You can save a whole lot of money. But that's why I make these videos, and I appreciate your support. I use all the money, I put it back into the channel to make better content for you. And also, by the way, speaking of who I am, if you have problems sleeping, I have a blog you can go to. It's from back in 2009 when I was a regional pilot. It's geekinthecockpit.com. That's my old username. The C word is an issue with social media. That's why I'm now Geek on the Flight Deck. But if you have problems sleeping, or you want to read about what it's like to be a regional pilot, go to geekinthecockpit.com and read about all my regional days. It goes for a couple of years, and then it kind of trails off as I got bored and I started doing more video stuff as well. And if you have any questions or comments, the easiest way to get a hold of me is on Instagram. If you don't want to use Instagram, I have my email address here. If you message me, please don't just say hi. Please list out all your questions in one form. I'll promise you I'll answer every single question. But give me a week, maybe even 2 weeks now to get back to you. I do respond to every single message, but it might not be instant. Sometimes you get lucky and it's within a few minutes. but it might be in a couple of days. So wrapping it up, again, I hope you enjoyed my coverage of Sun and Fun. Again, I did show some of the air, but I want to show you a lot what's on the ground. And these aviation conventions and conferences are very rewarding. If you've never touched an airplane, if you have a couple hundred hours, you have just a PPL, it's worth attending. There's so many people you can meet, so much you can learn by attending these types of shows. Again, thank you to Sun and Fun for allowing me to have media credentials and get to the show and show these people what awesome activities you have there. And again, thank you to all of you for supporting me. Please, if you don't mind, like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day. And as always, thank you for stopping by.